Oh, I'm kind of
Take
glad I
two.
Yeah, I'm glad we noticed it before we got much further.
If we didn't notice until the episode was done, I really don't know what I would have done.
So let's just meet after Thanksgiving and we'll do it all over again.
We'll just so we'll upload the episode. It'll just be me. You'll have to imagine that Renu is there. In fact, it'll just be me twice. You'll hear me overlaid on top of myself.
It'll be like good quality you and bad quality you because it's recording through the Discord audio.
I can be your angle or your devil. All right. Well, let's try that again with take two. Hello everyone and welcome to the Atcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your chainsaw man, Soup.
And I'm your totally not in a death game soccer guy, Renu. Even though soccer is a death game and we all know it.
If you really think about it, what is soccer but a team death game that you play against other teams?
Yeah, to an audience.
to an audience, which is, I mean, to be fair, most death games I feel like go out to an audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, this week stands for Absolute Territory because we'll be talking about, sampling, discussing the fall 2022 season, which obviously I realize is about halfway over already. But it just be like that on this bitch of an earth, really.
Oh wow! You're gonna blame the Earth?
Yeah, I'm blaming the concept of time.
Oh.
Yeah, we got a little off kilter there. In the sort of middle of the year, it all got a little fuzzy, and we're still kind of making up for that. But well, anyway, what have you been up to? What have you been up to?
I've just been slowly but surely preparing for the holidays. I got Clover groomed yesterday, so she is looking spiffy. She got her a little pink bow that they gave her, so she's all clean and beautiful. And I got a haircut today, so that I can also look presentable to my family.
Very nice, very nice.
Yes.
What kind of haircut did you just get, like a couple inches off or what?
Yeah, exactly. It was just like that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting a haircut on Monday.
Ooh, what you gonna get?
Undecided yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah. But I mean, I've been cutting my hair a little shorter recently, just because it is a little easier to manage when it's a little shorter. And I've been, rocking the longer hair for a little bit, which is really funny because, like, at the same time, I just like there's certain people that I just like don't see ever. Right? So it's like they'll see me and like I'll have just gotten a haircut and my hair will be like shorter than it usually is, and they're like, wow, your hair's longer than I remember. And I'm like, it is, but it is not like this is now a special state. Like this is shorter than it usually has been for the past couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, so that's exciting. Anything else you've been up to?
I think that's basically it. I've also been working on like editing like an Inktober, Arttober-ish video.
Oh, fun. Yeah, we're in the middle of NaNoWriMo, and
oh yeah,
I've done nothing.
Oh, you haven't worked on it?
Not at all. It has been, shall we say, a quite a busy couple of weeks for me.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know. When I kind of look back on it, I'm not exactly sure what has been going on. It just feels like time has been passing, and I mean, to be fair, the last like couple of days, last like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last 5 or so days, I've been working on like a work thing. So that really explains why I haven't been able to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I ideally would like to get to it if I have the time, but as always, there's always other obligations that I need to attend to. And it may just be one of those times where I just say maybe not this year. I mean, I have a head start that is quickly dwindling from the stuff that I wrote I believe last year. But I just yeah, I don't know. Been a busy couple of weeks for me.
Yeah, I mean, if over half the month is over, then maybe you could just be like, well, next year, or make
next
it
year. I'll just work on it, like
yeah.
when it's not November, kind of stuff.
Or not work on it on a different month. Just be like, I still want to do the challenge, but I want to do it on a month that's a little more suitable.
Yeah, just been. I just feel like I've been all over the place. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I need to get done. One of which, of course, is editing the podcast. Yeah, been a struggle to find time to even do that.
I know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, I've been trying to like take some concerted time to rest. But it feels like every time I try to do that, something else comes up, and it's like, screams.
Yeah, I don't, you've always struggled with the whole, like, managing your time situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I just, like, I'm bad at having, like, idle time.
You don't know what to do with it? Or
no,
you
it's
don't
not.
have
It's not
it?
that. It's just that anytime I have it, I'm just like, what if I like schedule something for this time slot because it's free now? Now I can do something with it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's less like I get bored or I don't know what to do, and more like I just like schedule it out of my week.
Right, you're like, okay, I have a free amount of time. I'm going to dedicate it to this thing.
That's been going. I'm trying desperately when I don't have obligations, which is hopefully, I say hopefully next week. That's not actually even true, but hopefully shortly I will have enough like runway space to just take a couple of days to be like worthless and useless and not like anything and just completely flush the caffeine dependence out of my body. That is my like number one priority right now. Is I need to do that, and then I need to take care of my of the stuff that will be tied to my parents' insurance before it runs out on my birthday, which is coming up rapidly.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I do have an insurance plan for when it ends. I'm getting it through Gwen's work, so luckily I will have insurance after that. I mean,
yeah,
expensive. Insurance is expensive, but
it is.
We're better to be insured than not to be insured.
Well, especially if you have any kind of medical condition or
right.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, right? Like I need eye stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Like that's very, very pressingly vital to my existence is to have the ability to see things. But anyway, yeah. I mean, other stuff like I'm getting legally married like next week. I say, which is a completely irrelevant statement for the podcast because it will not come out. This event will have already happened, so I will be married by then.
Oh, so you're gonna do the certificate, the courthouse, and then
yeah. So like the legal stuff we're taking care of, and then and then we'll plan a wedding for 2024, of which of course Renu, you are invited.
Yes.
So you better make some time. I think it's gonna take place in kind of like the early springish season. I think. I'm not 100% sure. We can't book the venue until a year in advance, so that's when we'll start like actually planning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So that's
I'm so
exciting.
excited. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Well, early congratulations to you and Gwen. That's so nice.
Thanks, Renu. Well, shall we sample some animes?
Heck yeah.
Shall we sample
Just as important as getting married.
Man, I mean, listen, if I had to choose between marriage and anime, if I really have to think about it, yeah, health insurance, really nice. Anime, I don't know if I could live without it. Yeah, the thing is, this season is actually, like, off the rocker. Like,
oh my god, there's so much stuff to watch.
Oh man, it's been like a couple of seasons since we've had a season this like ridiculously stacked with good shows. Feels like everything we're watching is good. So weirdly, contrarily, it means that ideally this episode is not going to be that long.
Yeah, because we haven't been able to catch up on much.
We ended up like continuing to watch most of the stuff that we're watching, and the new format of the sampler is that we try not to spend a ton of time talking about the stuff that we are intending on watching still.
Right, we're gonna keep it like intro, surface level, so that we can save the discussion for the wrap up.
Right, exactly, because you don't need to hear us say the same things like over and over again. This was less of a problem, I feel like, when we started doing samplers and wrap-ups, but by the kind of end point that we're at right now, like we've been doing this for a couple of years, I feel like we've gotten a really good, by watching so much anime, we've just got kind of a really good sense of like stuff that's going to be good and like why it's probably going to be good. So like we could still, obviously talk about like predictions and like, what could the themes of this show be? And yeah, I mean, let's just get right into it with the hot anime of the season, which is really funny because if you ask people what the hot anime of the season is, I think like almost everybody would have a different answer. I think probably half of people would say Chainsaw Man, obviously. I would say probably Chainsaw Man is the like dominating kind of presence.
Yes.
Which is for a couple of reasons that we'll kind of get into. But at the same time, a lot of people still watching Spy X Family. That show is still very popular. A lot of people are still watching Mob Psycho 100. It's got the Reagan Arataka Tumblr sexy man kind of prestige behind it. I would say that a lot of people are watching the new Gundam show, which from Mercury. And I would say also a lot of people are watching Bocchi the Rock. Very specifically, a lot of the people that I feel like are interested in kind of the craft of animation and the direction of animation tend to view Bocchi as like one of the best things that is airing right now, which is very compelling because it's stacked up against like these like titans that are airing right now.
Yeah.
You can always tell when something is like really popular, especially because if you kind of pay attention to, or if you follow a lot of like artists on like a platform like Instagram or Twitter, you get a sense of what is the most popular kind of thing going on, and I would say it's almost definitively Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, generally, I mean, there's also the trend of like people drawing the new anime waifu of the season.
Oh yeah,
this season it's definitely, at least according to my feed, has been Power from Chainsaw Man. But then last season it was Yor from Spy X Family.
I think it's really funny because Power has become very popular. I mean, I can kind of guess, right? I think she has all of the qualities of a really like fun character. But it's really funny because I feel like before the anime came out, a lot of the art was geared towards Makima.
Oh.
And it might just be because she isn't as prominent in the like very early parts of the story as she is in the later parts, right?
Yeah.
So that's my guess. I mean, obviously, like Chainsaw Man is really great because like if you can tell, we're talking about Chainsaw Man. It's the first thing on our list.
We'll just get into it.
we'll just get into it. Power is a character that is like very describable as like a herbo, like a female himbo.
Yeah.
which is actually different from a bimbo.
Yeah.
These are different classifications, but she just has that kind of like very roughshod, like incredibly stupid, but like in an amusing way, kind of charm to her, which is really funny when you pair her with Denji, who is like on the exact same end of the spectrum where he's also really stupid. And it just becomes quite endearing to watch.
Yeah, so I do like their interactions.
Yeah, so Chainsaw Man is a very interesting piece of media because it is by Tatsuki Fujimoto, who is I feel like people really like he really kind of blew up after the end of Chainsaw Man Part 1, which is the manga has Chainsaw Man Part 1 and then Chainsaw Man Part 2. Part 2 has just started serialization, and he serialized he wrote a couple of one-shots in between. And the interesting thing about Fujimoto is that the art is really like the art style is very specific, right? It's very unique. It is more like it's closer to the kind of like realism end of like anime style depictions, and it's also kind of roughshod. Like the line work is very much like it hasn't necessarily been lined so much as like you just kind of boldened all of the sketch lines, right?
Oh, interesting. I'm looking at it right now. Some screenshots.
Yeah.
Pages. Yeah.
Chainsaw Man is really interesting. But you can tell that there is a very definite like technical proficiency there. And I think more importantly, there's a kind of like expressive element to it when you really read the manga and you look at the way the panels are composed. It's very it's very dynamic. But it's also really interesting because it's like it's not particularly like pretty to look at, but that kind of works for it. It feels very like raw. It reminds me a lot of just like something like Attack on Titan, where the art style is like actually really kind of bad, but different, right? Because in this case, I think it errs more on the side of like being good.
Yeah, I would say it's the type of style that you can get away with because you've so mastered traditional ways of doing art, so you know how to break the rules, and it looks like this person is
that's
confident at that.
It feels very like there's almost a kind of like how do I put this? It's like a very grounded abstraction, right?
Yeah.
Like the art style isn't particularly like anime-y, but at the same time it's like it's not like it's like perfectly realistic or anything.
No, I think it's definitely a style that services the story in a really great way.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. It's also like Fujimoto has this habit of making media that is like his manga work. His original serialization, I believe, was Fire Punch, which is about a guy who is on fire all the time. So like you could really see the kind of like the sort of like thematic line between Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man.
Yes. I mean, it'd be like that, right? I feel like a lot of authors, like their breakout hit sometimes is just like a rehash or like kind of like a do-over.
Right. It's like it's a refinement of the thing that they did. They're like, no way, I got it this time.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I would say I would dare to say that there is a quite a high density of material to like dissect when talking about Chainsaw Man, to the point where I'm like really tempted to just like pull it out of the wrap up and just spend an episode talking about Chainsaw Man, because I think there's so much that you can talk about. It is about a world that is modern day Japan / the world, except there are devils, and the scarier the concept of the devil, the more strong it is. And the main character is a boy who merges with the Chainsaw Devil. That's the plot of Chainsaw Man. And hearing the synopsis of the plot will not prepare you for how absolutely unhinged this show is.
Yes, it's definitely, I mean, you can probably tell just by looking at the art, but it's definitely meant for a mature audience. There's a lot of violence in it, but there's also, like, some sexy scenes and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of like I think this is really interesting. I will talk about this now. I think there is a very intimate relationship that the themes of Chainsaw Man has in terms of the sort of like ultra violence that it has, right? The very like over the top hyper stylized like gore that it has. Sure. Connected to the way more subtle forms of violence that it has, right? Like just kind of the like way that Denji was treated as and like dehumanized and used as a tool, and then like, you know, the Yakuza members that were using him like that in turn got used by the devils, and it just like, kind of keeps going. It's really funny if you look at the chain of Chainsaw Man, where if you watch the first like 5 or 6 episodes, what you get is like you get this like guy who just like is basically not a person, and then you have him go to like a government agency where he's put under the care of another guy who's like, why do I have to take care of this guy? And then like next episode he's like, okay, now you Denji, you have to take care of Power, and Power shows up and is also insane. And then like you go to the next episode and you learn that Aki was under the care of another, you know, a devil hunter, and you're like, this chain just goes all the way down. Like everybody's just everybody here is literally just put and like put in a position where they have to watch over somebody who is somehow more insane than they are.
Yeah, I am so interested in learning more about the themes that the story is trying to tell, because there's some that are very apparent from the get-go, and then there's some that I'm like, I have to wait to see where the story goes, but I'm really interested in it because obviously the manga is highly regarded, but also like, I don't know where it's going.
I do not know exactly where the anime is going to stop. I don't know if they're intending on covering the entirety of part 1 or not. I'm really interested to know, because where it ends is like very important for how much you can talk about the themes of Chainsaw Man. And man, there is a lot to digest and think about. Like honestly, for a series that is serialized in Shonen Jump, it's actually like off the wall bonkers how dense it is with meaning. And
yeah,
it's interesting that it's caught on as kind of a mainstream hit, because at the same time like it's so like symbolically dense and like thematically dense, and like all of these things are so intimately intertwined with each other in like this way where it can be very difficult to pull them apart. I remember when I finished part 1, I like had to just like sit on it for a couple of days before I like could even think about what I had just read and like what the fuck any of it meant.
Yeah.
So I have some ideas.
So I would want to say that like one of the reasons why it's probably so successful is that it manages to do all of that, right? It manages to balance what people might be looking for in a Shonen Jump manga, which is like, you know, quote unquote cheap thrills, right? They want to see the thing explode. They want to see the action man do the action thing, right? Like that's all very cool, and it feels very satisfying to watch from moment to moment. But then it also, for people who like to think about their manga, you know, they don't want just the surface level stuff. They want to like think really deeply about, you know, themes and stuff like that. It also is satisfying in that regard because there's a lot of complexity to the characters and the setup that's going on in the story. Just to the point that you don't necessarily know exactly where the story is headed, but you're very invested and you're intrigued as to where it's going. So I think it satisfies both audiences, or you know, it has a little bit of something for general readers, you know, regardless of where they're coming from, to be able to appreciate something from this series. Yeah, I'm really impressed from what we've seen of the anime, at least so far, because it's
oh yeah,
very clear that they put all of their money and all of their A team, like S tier team, like whatever, everything into the anime.
So Chainsaw Man done by Studio Mappa, and they really kind of put it all together there. And I think for its credit, it is one of the best implementations of CG in an otherwise not CG anime.
Yeah.
Right? It's integrated almost seamlessly because of just kind of how consistent it is in terms of, like, a lot of the CG scenes are going to be like of Chainsaw Man, right? Of Denji becoming the Chainsaw Man.
Yes.
And it works in the sense that, he is occupying this like kind of otherworldly, not quite human state. So in contrast, right, to even the other sort of devils you see, he stands kind of alone as an entity that, like, actually kind of works when they do the CG, and makes it feel like there's a point to it. And also, like, obviously the CG is good, and part of the reason that it works is because the style Tatsuki Fujimoto's style is very much a lot closer to a reflection of reality, right? And part of the way that it feels like they've done that is a lot of the animation feels like you can see more of the modeling behind it, right? So even though it's obviously a 2D anime, it kind of feels like they either rotoscope some scenes or at the very least are emulating the kind of like rotoscoping feel.
Yes.
And they've kind of kept the like messy line work in a lot of ways, which really works.
Yeah.
And all of these things kind of lend to a very consistent style, even when they introduce CG and even when they use CG for things that are not, Chainsaw Man, right? There's a very like I remember in the last episode we watched, there's a very like short cut where it's a top down view and you see Aki walking and he's like CG rendered, but it looks fine, right? It looks completely consistent with the rest of the show. It does not take you out of it at all.
Right, and I think that's one of the keys to effectively using 3D animation or graphics in what's what people expect to be a 2D animation, is that it doesn't take away from the show. It doesn't necessarily break you out of the immersion. You might notice it. You'll be like, oh, I think that's CG right there. And it's very evident, of course, like you said, when Chainsaw Man makes his first appearance, when he first transforms. But it does it in a way that feels like it's servicing the story, right? And he still like exudes that fear of like, oh my gosh, he's got bloody teeth, he's crazy looking, this is intense, like, right? It doesn't ruin any of the atmosphere or mood, versus like when you can tell that it's done in a way to save on budget or animation costs or whatever in other animations we've seen, where you get taken out of the story to the point that you're like, oh, look at that funky CG over there, look at that CG crowd and over there, and you're not paying attention to the story at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the CG is largely on purpose, right?
Yes,
it largely is used as a technique rather than just, fuck, we're out of time, I guess we'll have to fill in these crowds so we don't have to do more work, right?
Yeah.
So that just goes a long way. And I will also say this about Chainsaw Man before we move on, which is that the fact that they decided that they wanted a different ending for each episode is bonkers.
Oh my god.
They basically got like, this is actually like wild, right? Because the sort of like artist list for their opening and ending track list is like, just what?
They got huge musical artists
so
to
like
do these songs in Japan.
The opening is by Kenshi Yonezu, right? Which is already like, all right, cool, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But like, you have it's really interesting because the endings are from a mix of like really well-known artists like what is that artist called? Vondi?
Vondi, yes, from who did Osama Ranking.
Yeah, so Vondi did Osama Ranking, and obviously very very in the now because of that now. But like they got a lot of really popular like Vocaloid producers also on the team to do the endings, and each ending has its own like unique animated sequence.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is wild.
You just have to look at the list, right? Like Maximum the Hormone, who famously did a song for Death Note.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There's Anna,
very well
there's
known.
Eve, who started off.
Oh, they even got an They got an Aimer song.
They got Aimer, yes.
My God.
Kanaya, Pseudo, Queen Bee,
Zutomayo,
TK from Ling Toshite Shigure, Toboe, Vondi, and people want. My God, dude.
This is like a best hits of like all the artists from the most popular like openings and endings of the last like 5 years.
How much money do you have? And the answer is all of it.
This is actually ridiculous. And they're great. They're really fun.
They're good. Yeah, they're good.
And that's pretty much all I gotta say about Chainsaw Man now. But man, just you wait till that season ends. Woo, boy.
Quaking.
Okay. Spy X Family second season. It is still good. We're still watching it. It's very cute. I don't remember if they were doing this in season 1, but it seems like season 2 is broken up into a lot more of the like half length episodes. So like you got like the A sort of like episode and then the B episode. And they're like, they just play back to back.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that is the format that a lot of the manga takes for much of its sort of run. It is a lot more like this, like kind of slow burning slice of life story that has occasional like stuff. I mean, it's good. It's cute.
It's good. Yeah, I would say if you're wondering whether you should continue watching to the second season, they introduced the dog in this season.
Yeah, dog. Boof. He go
great.
Love to see it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got to say about that. I mean, it's still really good.
It's great.
Okay, we watched an episode of Blue Lock. I don't know if you've watched more of this.
I haven't.
Okay, all right.
I want to, though.
I will say I am wanting to watch more of this.
Are you?
So,
oh wow!
Yeah, it's on the list. This show is fucking bonkers. It is about a guy who is too selfless in soccer, and so his team loses a game, and then he gets scouted by the world's most insane soccer recruiter. Who's like, okay, Japan sucks ass at the World Cup. So what we need is we need a giga player. We need a player who is only playing for himself.
Well, he's saying that the world's top soccer players, right? The top strikers and forwards and all that, like the people who score the goals, right? He's saying that they are precisely where they are at the top of the world because they are the most selfish players, right? And he quotes them and stuff like that, and talks about how good it is that they're such greedy players and they're only out for number one, and that's how they got to be the best. And he's saying that basically a bunch of the people who were gathered here, they're all like high school soccer players, right? He's saying if you guys have any hope of going pro, join my program. And whoever is left in the end will be guaranteed a spot on the Japanese international team. However, if you lose, you'll be banned from ever entering this team. And that's like the number one goal of any Japanese soccer player going pro in this universe, right?
Right.
So he's giving them a crazy opportunity, but also putting them through a crazy experiment in the process.
So the premise of Blue Lock is literally like, what if we made a death game, but they were playing soccer? And
yes,
I fair enough. Like sure.
Yeah, so everything is paced with the intensity of a death game. Like these people are putting their lives on the line, which, I mean, as essentially it's their career that's on the line, right? And for someone who like aspires to play soccer professionally, like that essentially is your life, right? It's not a matter of like you dying afterwards, but professionally as a career player, you would essentially quote unquote die in this game is how they're setting it up, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the animation is extremely intense. The stakes are very like high. Everything is so exorbitantly dramatized, and it's so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was definitely the most entertained I've ever been watching a sports anime. It turns out all you had to do was people die, but not for you. Yeah, it's a show that like doesn't take itself seriously at all by being extremely over the top about it.
Exactly.
And that is very funny.
Yes. It's hilarious to watch.
It is an intensely entertaining show. So I am wanting to watch more of it.
Me too.
It would be really funny if he just lost and that's just the end of the show. Like, all right, you're out. That's it. It's over. Like, oh, okay.
What do we do now?
Yeah. Okay. Eminence in Shadow, which is about a guy who wants really, really badly to be essentially like the Batman, but in real life. So he just trains to be the Batman. He wants to be perceived as like a complete, mob character, and then also, but secretly he's a vigilante that fights people and stops crime with his crowbar. This show is, I think, going to be very hit or miss, very dependent on how you feel. The first episode does have a kind of a the sort of like I'm gonna sexually assault you so that the hero can save you kind of scene in it.
Yes.
And very, I think I don't know. The thing about it is that it takes itself really seriously, which is, I think it depends on how you can read the intent of it and what your sort of tolerance for that kind of thing is, because it is objectively kind of funny. And it is objectively quite ridiculous because he gets into the isekai world once he gets hit by a truck. And he just starts making stuff up from like a very chuny perspective. He's like, oh, this is all the plot of the demon lord and his revival and all that stuff. And he's just making it up off the cuff. But then it all turns out to be real, and everything he says turns out to just be true. But he doesn't know about it. And like, he creates this organization where like it's just a secret organization that is like trying to fix the world from the shadows, but he doesn't even know what they're actually doing. He thinks that it's just doing a bit.
Yeah, he like ends up recruiting a bunch of these ladies, right? Like kind of like a harem style almost. And he basically blames their circumstances, right? If like they're enslaved or whatever, if they're caught in a bad situation, he says that he's rescuing them from this bad organization, right? It's all their fault. And so then they all get together, they serve under him to find the root of this organization and wipe it out. And so they're all like, they happen across like, I don't know, like cult members and things like that, like all this bad stuff that's happening in the world. And they manage to connect it to this made up organization that he just slapped a name on. And he's like, wow, they really, whatever these bad people are doing just somehow gets connected to this organization that I made up.
Yeah. So, it is, I think, like, the anime takes a very different approach than the manga, because I think the manga is much more overt about how absurd it is.
Yeah.
So how amusing you'll find it is kind of how much you can buy into how like overly seriously it takes itself. Because I think that is ultimately the point. Is I think it's like, the comedy of the manga is very like very pointed about pointing out like how ridiculous it is, and then the comedy of the anime is taking itself so overly seriously that you have to admit it's kind of absurd. And I think those styles of comedy are very different. So what I was expecting going into the anime was not what I received. I think it is actually quite funny when I think about it in retrospect, because getting an anime adaptation and then taking the anime adaptation overly seriously is objectively kind of funny.
Sure. Yeah. I can understand that. I think it is basically a matter of preference. Like, do you want if you want it to be laid out plainly in a comedic way, of course, which is on tone like for the rest of the work, the setup of the story, then I would say that the manga is a great avenue to experience this story, because it makes it very clear from the get-go that it doesn't take itself seriously, and that it's basically making fun of the protagonist along with the whole rest of the show, right? It's like that. But the anime starts off in such a way, like the entire first episode has such a serious tone to it, and the fact that it includes like the attempted sexual assault of a high school girl. It can be, at least when I was first watching it, I was confused because it played itself so seriously that I didn't even realize that it was going to be a comedy. And so it was such a tonal like whiplash going from episode 1 to episode 2, because episode 1 takes place in the modern world, right? And then at the very end of episode 1, they mention as like a footnote, like a little news story on the TV, that he got hit by a truck. You don't even get to see it happen. And then the second episode is a completely different tone. You get to hear more of his thoughts, that he's making everything up that he's been doing up until this point. You don't get as much of that in the first episode because it takes place in the perspective of the teenage girl. So you don't get to hear any of his thoughts in the fact that he's making up the whole world that he's in.
Right.
So the first episode sets up kind of like a dark mystery kind of thing. It's like this girl is trying to figure out why this guy can't even bother remembering her name. He treats her like an NPC. And so I thought it was kind of like like this guy was isekai'd from a fantasy world to the modern world. That was my first conception of it, because I was like, oh, he's talking like he knows exactly what's going to happen, but he's treating her like an NPC. Is that what's going on? And then, no, it turns out that he... and you showed me what it is in the manga, is that he just takes himself so seriously. He wants to be a hero from the shadows, and that's why he follows this girl, and he somehow knows that she's going to be attacked, and then he attacks the guy with the crowbar, and then he gets hit by a truck at the end. And so the anime left me very confused, but I think there's like probably I might be the only one that ended up feeling that way, because there's a lot of people, of course, that like this show, but I didn't understand the I guess the tonal inconsistency, but like reflecting back on it, I think I can understand it based on the fact that they were trying to just like make a joke out of the entire thing, that like because he takes it so seriously in the modern world, the anime decided to take it really seriously in the first episode.
I think so too, yeah.
Reveal it in the second episode. Yeah.
I feel like in general, it just to me kind of feels like they just played the bit out a little bit too long. Because like he gets isekai'd in like 2 pages in the manga, right? I don't know what it's like in the original light novel. It may include that scene that might be more faithful to the light novel. But like I feel like you could have really gotten away with conveying the same amount of information for like 12 minutes. I think you could have wrapped it up in half an episode and then have the latter half of the episode be like, oh, he's actually kind of a dweeb. He's actually kind of a goober.
Right. I think I would have appreciated that more if by the end of the first episode, they would have conveyed, oh, this guy is just a clown, you know? Like, they make it really clear in the first page of the manga that he is, because they draw him like he's a Hulk-shaped high schooler, right?
Right, he's so like, I just want to be a normal boy.
Yeah, I understand what's going on here. This guy is very dedicated to wanting to be a hero from the shadows, so he beefed himself up like crazy. And they didn't even involve the whole, like, attempted attack on this girl or anything in the manga. They went ahead with him being isekai'd. So, for me personally, I would have, I guess, preferred for them to have introduced the premise a little sooner, like within the first episode. But yeah, I would highly recommend, if you want to check this out, to watch at least 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well. How about we talk about Urusei Yatsura, which is a very interesting thing to get in the year of our Lord 2022, because this is like a Rumiko Takahashi classic. This is the thing is, if you have not been like alive, actually, I'm gonna say this: if you haven't been alive, right, beyond a certain amount of time, there's a very good chance you don't actually know like who Lum is. But she was like the it girl for anime and manga for like a generation, right?
I mean, yeah, I feel like if you're any part of the anime community, you have at least seen her. You might not know who she is or where she's from, but you've at least seen this lady with like the teal hair and then the and the striped outfit and the horns and everything. Like you've seen her somewhere. And yeah, the fact that we are getting an Urusei Yatsura adaptation, a modern adaptation that, like, it does, I think, stay pretty faithful to Rumiko Takahashi's art style. And it's the animation is pretty, right? It's not, at least in the first episode that we watched, they didn't seem like they're cutting corners and that kind of thing. I don't know about the rest of the season, but I would definitely say if you don't know about Urusei Yatsura or you're a fan of the original work, then it could be worth checking out.
It is a modern adaptation of a classic. And honestly, it's funny because like Urusei Yatsura is like kind of this like it's a sort of like window into another era of anime with very distinctly different sensibilities, and you can kind of see the things that have changed and the things that have stayed the same. Urusei Yatsura came out in the 70s and ran until the late 80s, right? So it is this is like the anime TMCR. You know, obviously it predates a ton of things, and really the thing about like, you know, Rumiko Takahashi is like a lot of the stuff that she was writing becomes genre convention.
Yeah.
So like, you know, this kind of like you know, a little sexy comedy, a little sexy like rom-com you know, situation where like you have these like, you know, ridiculous love triangles and you got like something going on with the main character that is like out of the ordinary. And all of these kinds of things are traceable back to, you know, Urusei Yatsura and Ranma 1/2, and all that kind of stuff. Like this is before the advent of like the harem anime as we know it, the harem genre as we know it, which, you know, obviously started back when we had Ken Akamatsu and Love Hina is when it really solidified into its modern form. But yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty delightful. It definitely still feels like it has a lot of that like older sensibility to it. But
course,
obviously the animation has been like, you know, spiffied up. Still very clearly Rumiko Takahashi style, which is always a delight to look at.
Yes. It kind of like the modern treatment of it reminds me a bit of what they did with Osomatsu-san, except I would say what they did with Urusei Yatsura, it's even prettier, right? It's a clean style, very colorful, but the animation is really good. At least from what we've seen of it. So, yeah, I'm impressed. I honestly was not expecting this at all to happen.
So, let's talk about I'm the Villainess, so I'm taming the final boss, which is something that we have already kind of talked about for quite some length when we did the Villainous episode.
Yeah.
The anime adaptation is fine. it's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. I was really excited for it, but
yeah.
Yeah, on the one hand, it is fine. Like the animation quality is like okay, but I guess if you're someone who's only read the manga, then there is some new content here because they included a ton of light novel only material.
Yeah, that's kind of the trade-off, is that I feel like the way that the story is told in the manga adaptation is a lot better than the way it's told in the anime. The anime feels just like I don't know what it is, but there's something about the anime that just feels a lot more generic, even though technically speaking the content you're getting is the same. And I
don't know, it feels very truncated too.
I think that's part of the problem. I think the problem is that they tried to fit like just a ton of stuff in not a lot of episodes, you know? Like if they had like they probably have like 12, 13 episodes to work with, and they decided, well, we can't make it I think they just had to make a decision, because it's like we can't make it just the first arc, because like so the manga is only 13 chapters. Right? So it's not overly too much to work with, which is why I think they truncated it to like 3 or 4 episodes worth of content, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to fit the rest of the content in, which I'm assuming that the amount of content is that they would need those episodes. And I don't know. I think it does kind of suffer from that, right? It's like it's a very straightforward adaptation of the material. It is like it's so fast. Like all of the development that happens even in these 13 chapters of the manga feels like it's really just kind of a lighted over. I feel like you just get a very like Cliff Notes sort of like experience where you're just like getting all of the story beats, but they're not delivered to you in any kind of like comprehensible way. They're just like, right, like the thing about a story beat is that like it has to have like kind of a rhythm to it, so it's not just like bop 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 bop, but that's like what it feels like. It feels like the anime is like bop 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 bop.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't feel like there's like a push and pull of like your emotions are being pushed this way and then pulled that way.
It feels very monotonous and like straightforward in how it delivers the story to you, which kind of sucks, because I really liked the manga, and the manga felt like it was developing and portraying the story a lot better, and I feel like we got to know a lot more about the side characters. And as a result, it felt like the sort of like main relationship was a lot more solid by the same point that it reaches in the anime, whereas in the anime it just kind of feels like, oh, it just kind of happens, I guess.
Yeah, they're in love now.
They're married now. Oh, right. And it's like, I don't know. I was looking forward to the show, and it is fine, and we're mostly watching it so we can absorb the light novel content. Which is, I mean, interesting, but also like, also delivered in pretty much the exact same way, where it's just like, you got it. It's the plot. Here you go. So not overly exciting. A little disappointing, but I mean, I would just read the manga, honestly.
Oh God, please read the manga.
Yeah, I think the manga just is a lot more charming. The anime just feels so generic.
Yeah, it's like animated generically, and the pacing is just a mess. And the manga is beautifully drawn, and the pacing is perfect for the story. You feel so invested in all the characters, and by the end, you're like, I love everyone.
The thing is, if you read the manga, it even feels like it ends like a little soon, and that's like fine, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I would obviously have been happy to have more adapted, but at the same time, it is good enough on its own to just like exist. And then obviously, if you don't want to watch the anime and you want to get more of the story, the light novel always exists. People translate chapters of light novels all over the place. It's one of the great sort of the grand traditions of pirating media is reading translated works, not officially translated works. Okay, well, moving on from there, let's talk about Golden Kamuy 4th season, which fucking slaps.
Yo.
This show, I swear, just keeps getting better.
Let's go.
It's pretty impressive to me that 4 seasons in, we're, 1, still getting anime seasons, and 2, the story is remaining, like, really interesting and engaging.
Yes.
And, like, it's actually really fucking wild when you kind of, like, get down to it, but I like it because
I love it.
It's such a like exciting adventure story.
Yes.
And like it's so rare that you get a story like this where pretty much everybody is like, at any moment they could be an enemy or an ally.
Yeah.
And it makes the moments when a character like goes through like a betrayal, right? You're like, no, oh my god, even though like like all these guys suck. They're all terrible people. Like a lot of them are just like they just love to kill people.
There are a lot of murderers in this show.
There are a lot of murderers in this show that are like, the army wasn't enough murdering for me, so I'm gonna become like a vigilante, I guess.
It is disturbing.
But and like the guys that they're all tracking that they're tracking down are all like criminals in like the maximum security prison of the era. So like, yeah, obviously. But like it I think Golden Kamuy is like the perfect adventure story mix of like something that is really serious when it needs to be and it feels like very serious and impactful and it feels like the stakes are very high. It's very comically funny when it wants to be. It's like also like really horny but in a really funny way. Because like they're all just men, they're all just manly men, and you just get like soft core like bara porn every couple of like episodes.
It's just a bunch of men hanging out.
Just a bunch of guys doing what they love best, being around men.
Yeah.
Shirtless.
Yep.
The homoerotic tension in Golden Kamuy is astounding.
That's amazing. That's very entertaining.
I also think it's really funny that the character that they kind of just like sexually harass the most is Tanigaki. They're just like getting kind of thick and juicy. Tanigaki's like, what are you guys talking about?
Leave me alone.
Why are you saying that? Yeah. So Golden Kamuy is like continues to be amazing and continues to be very impressive. Very well told story, very engaging. And the anime is not letting us down. If anything, it's getting better.
Yeah, I would say if you haven't experienced Golden Kamuy yet, then honestly, you can just jump in you can start at any point in your life and you'll find yourself binging through all of it. It's very good like that.
Do it yourself. Which is a very cute anime with a very unique art style. Occasional flashes of very brilliant animated sequences. And it is about a girl that becomes inducted into the DIY club, the do-it-yourself club. This show is very cute in the very specific way that a show like Yuru Camp is like cute and healing, where like you can really tell that the point of the show is to just depict for you a very cozy kind of slice of life story with endearing characters. We've only watched the first season, but like it's very well put together.
It's extremely well done. I was so surprised by this. It's like an anime original, isn't it? It just
it's an original anime.
Came out. Yeah, and it's really, really charming, and it is like Yuru Camp in that it also takes its time to like teach you a thing or two about like crafting and carpentry and things like that you can actually do at home. Just like Yuru Camp teaches you about camping.
Yeah,
So
it's
you get a little bit of knowledge, and you also get really nicely done animation. Everything looks very pleasing to the eyes, and it's deliberately paced in a way that to me it doesn't feel boring. I'm very invested in this child learning how to make things.
Yeah, I would say in general, I think that Yuru Camp really set the gold standard for a like slow healing show that isn't like boring, right? There's actual sort of like stuff to be watching about, and do it yourself feels like one side of that coin, where it's very cute and charming, and you get to learn a little something about like something you might not have thought about doing yourself, but lowers the barrier to entry and says like, hey, you can make it like a birdhouse if you wanna, right?
Yeah,
or
a
shelf
bookshelf,
if you wanna,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Funnily, the other end of that coin, the other side of that coin, of the Yuru Camp coin, is Bocchi the Rock, which I think also has a very similar vibe to Yuru Camp, but in the sort of different way, where like it's more about like the character dynamics, and it's funny, right? In that
Yeah.
sense, like it's kind of like meant to be kind of a comedy.
Yeah.
And then also the main character has pink hair, so it's just Yuru Camp. It's just Yuru Camp.
Is it?
Yeah. Speaking of Bocchi the Rock, I would say that the attention to detail in this show is very good. I've heard some very specific things about things that I just have never thought about, which is like people being like, "Oh, that guitar she's using is really legit, and the amp she's using is really legit." And there's something very like, it's obviously a very contemporary show. It's about a girl that is like really socially awkward, and she's like, you know what? I want K-On! That's what I want. Like the concept of K-On! Of like being in like a band in high school, and making like together memories, right? I want that because I'm socially awkward, and this is how I'll get everybody to like me. It's actually pretty relatable, honestly. And she just goes through middle school and is basically unable to actually muster up the courage to join the club. So she just starts posting videos to YouTube, and she's very well regarded on YouTube, but nobody knows about that, right? So I think it's I think the premise is very good, and I like that the sort of direction of the show is like very clearly laid out before you, right? It's about her kind of overcoming her social anxiety and learning to work together with other people, and be part of a band. And I think all of that is obviously quite charming.
It is. I want to see her make friends, and I want to see her become the rocker that she wants to be. Because you just imagine this like little quiet, socially awkward girl, and she can play her instrument like no other, and you just want to see her unlock her potential and just really rock out on stage. And I do love the attention to detail. You can tell that like it's at least written or portrayed by people who like know about the experience of learning this kind of thing, and the venues that they go to, at least in the first episode that we saw, like looked very authentic. I was like, I've been to a venue that looks just like that for like an underground like, concert kind of thing, right? Yeah. So
a concert for a band that has like 5 fans.
Yeah, exactly. So I love all of that. I'm really looking forward to hopefully we get time to watch more, because I'm
definitely intending on watching more. I really liked it, and it was interesting because it feels very well directed for a show that could easily have been extremely generic. Like if you look at a still frame of like just any of the characters kind of standing there, right? Like the art style of it it gives this implication that it could be a quite a generic show.
Right. Yeah.
But the actual way that they make the characters move and the attention to detail that they give to their personalities, I think really does make it pop and bring it to life in a way that would otherwise be very easy to just not do. So hats off to you. We will definitely be watching more of this. Speaking of stuff that we are going to be watching, Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about how I mean, I've watched Gundam shows before, of course, but I'm struggle to remember the last time I was this invested in a Gundam show. Like, I love Gundam shows just in general, but this one is the one that's got me from episode to episode. I'm like, yo, what's gonna happen next? I need to make sure the children are okay, and like, I want to make sure that the Gundam stays with the girl, and I'm really invested.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, number one, they put lesbians in the Gundams, and love to see that. Number two, I think that the recent crop of Gundam anime, I think, has been very good about adapting to sort of modern sensibilities in terms of you know, depicting characters and the motivations and stuff. Like, obviously, Gundam has kind of historically been this series that is like kind of like, sometimes it's a little space opera-y, sometimes it's you know, more grounded. But historically, you know, it's a lot of Gundam really is in its depiction like, cool robot, right? Like, that's the meme, is like it's the cool robot meme, right? But like,
so this is a Gundam.
Right? So like, people like always think about Gundam as the show with the cool robots that fight each other and the pilots that are like cool and they do the Gundam piloting, right?
Yeah.
But I think this and Iron Blooded Orphans really focused on building characters that you would care about first, and then introducing the Gundam aspect of it. The prologue episode, episode 0 of Witch from Mercury, was fucking brutal. Like, I was not prepared. I don't know what it was. Right, I don't know, because I think definitely part of it was how well that episode was structured and told, and maybe part of it was I was just feeling very emotionally vulnerable that day, right? Because like, I watched that episode, I was like, I'm gonna fucking cry.
Really?
What the fuck? Like, I don't remember the last time.
Yeah.
Okay, I do remember the last time. I was gonna say I don't remember the last time that I cried over like an anime, you know, an anime orphan backstory. I do remember because it happens so infrequently, right? And the last time it happened was when we were watching A Place Further Than the Universe, which was like, so long ago. But like,
wow.
But like, man, like, tragic anime orphans are always like one of those like, shit, man. Yeah, I guess so.
Here we go.
Here we go again.
The tears are coming.
But like, man, I don't know if it was just like, I think part of it is like, obviously, the direction is just like the pacing is like really perfect, I think. They really nailed it. But like, man, when you're like, oh shit, her dad's gonna die. Oh. Oh, no.
Spoilers for the first episode. The main character has a tragic backstory. I would say, I mean, because we watched so many anime, I was just like, if they're starting this far back for the protagonist, her parents are gonna die, right? And,
yeah.
Yeah. And so like, even if you have that sense and you're like, okay, by the end of the episode they're gonna die, it still hits you, and that's when you know that you've got a good story on your hands. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you can call the result or not. It's the progression. It is the pacing. It is the storytelling and the dialogue and everything that just comes together in the end. And then her dad dies, and you're like, no.
Yeah.
And so the storytelling in the show is so good. I would say Gundam traditionally, at least from what I've experienced of it over the years, is like, it, certain shows like cater to different audiences, right? Some of them are a little more shonen coded, some of them are just more adult coded, I would say this one feels like the most approachable one that I've experienced thus far to like our audience, right?
Yeah, I think
if
so.
you're not if you're not someone who like is super into robots, if you're someone who's more into like character drama, this show is great. If you're someone who's like not super into like shonen stuff, but you can appreciate good action sequences and good like battles and that kind of thing, this show isn't like all about the battles, but it's about the character conflict being told through battles, right? And so it's told through duels specifically, not even like giant space fights with laser pew pews or whatever. It's told through very like intimate setting. This person is dueling this person for these very clear stakes. Like they have to state what they're putting on the line for the duel before they start the duel, right? Like that's how clear cut it is. But you're still like invested in it because like the stakes mean something to these characters. So it kind of like in a sense it narrows down like the scope of like what a Gundam show is. It brings it all into like a very intimate setting of just like these kids in a like like becoming like robot pilots, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this prestigious academy, to just the stories of these future pilots, as opposed to like a world-ending conflict, right? And so in that way, that's why I feel like it feels a little more approachable to someone who might be new to Gundam and they're like, oh, I don't want to watch a show about like giant robots whacking at each other or whatever. There's a lot more to this show than that, right? There are of course Gundam shows that specifically cater to that, right? There's a lot of like Gundam technology and like a lot of terminology being thrown around and lots of Gundams fighting each other and that kind of thing. But this show, like, I think does a great job of I think would be a great way to like bring in a new audience if that's what the studio is going for.
I would say that, at its core, I've I've written a couple of games about like mech stuff. Even though like I've traditionally just like never been the like the big Gundam fan. I don't really do like the model kit stuff.
Sure.
And I haven't really finished any Gundam series like from cover to cover ever really. Like a lot of my experience is just kind of like seeing what was like an episode or two of what was airing. So I can't speak to it the best, obviously. But I would say that I think that one of the appeals of mech shows is the kind of duel, right? Of like two characters that are kind of locked in combat with each other. And I think that if you're doing it well, right, that kind of storytelling lends itself very well to revealing things about characters. And
yeah,
I think that that is something that is really shining through in Witch from Mercury, because it's just about like these kids that they're not like child soldiers going to war, right? In the same way that like Iron-Blooded Orphans is. It's like they're really fighting for very personal stakes, and they're kind of fighting in this like coming of age sort of setting where they're trying to find themselves and define who they are, right? So I think it's really interesting. It feels it's really funny to say like it feels like a younger person's Gundam, because I'm not yeah, like I think that there are aspects of Gundam that have always been like that are being refined in a way that is palatable for people who don't normally watch these kinds of shows.
exactly.
So that's what I would say for now, is like definitely if you've historically never been a fan of Gundam, I would give this one a shot, and you might find that you actually do end up enjoying.
Yeah, I would say the same. This is definitely one of the best ones to approach from I've never watched Gundam before. I of course have heard of the giant robots that are called Gundam, but that's about all that I know about it. The show will surprise you in how well it just tells itself as its own story. I think if you're like a traditional Gundam fan, it could be hit or miss. Like it depends on your expectations, right? If you come in with zero expectations and you're like, it's a new Gundam story, it'll probably have a Gundam in it. I want to see the new Gundam. Then it'll be fine.
I want to see a Gundam. Make him shoot the lasers.
Right. But if you are like, I want to see giant space opera, like bunch of Federation, like this group fighting a war with this group, like a bunch of like that kind of conflict, you're not gonna find it in the show because it's a much smaller scale. So if you're looking for a large scale Gundam show, then you'll have to revisit some of the other stories. But if you're open to having a much smaller scale story that might, in terms of like world-ending prospects, has much smaller stakes, but way more personal, then the show is. I mean, it's I love it.
I mean, I would also say like there is an element that that I'm sure that they will expand on, of this kind of like of this like broader sort of corporate political war. That I think is like interesting and could be potentially engaging and satisfying for somebody looking for a larger story. But you know, for us, like we like stories that have very personal stakes, and that is what is drawing us to Witch from Mercury. So
yeah, that's
I would say
preference.
All right, speaking of personal stakes, Akiba Maid War, which I mean, really nothing I watched from the trailer could have prepared me for what I did watch. So like Akiba Maid War is like about maids in like maid cafes in Akihabara, right? In I think the 90s is when it's set. It is not what I thought it would be at all. I don't know what I was to be honest, when I saw the trailer, I don't know what I was expecting, but then the first episode opens and like it's like a solemn shot from like a movie, and then a lady just gets fucking shot with a gun and dies. Right?
They're definitely referencing some traditional, like some older movie with that.
This is absolutely probably some kind of reference to like some kind of mafia movie. Like, and that's like ultimately what this show is. It is like it's a gang war mafia show with a side of like really over the top like maid antics, right? Maid cafe antics. So like you have like the like moe kyun, and that's like juxtaposed next to somebody pulling out two pistols and like clearing an entire room full of maids. Yeah, so like it's
just maid stuff, right? It definitely feels like if you have a bunch of Yakuza factions, but they're all maid cafes.
Right.
Yeah, the maid cafe is like the storefront, right? It's like their front business. And then the back business is them going around and eliminating their competition.
It does honestly feel like it could be a Yakuza side story. But they've expanded it out into a whole show, and I don't know who decided that they wanted to do this, but I mean, Godspeed. Like I'm so interested. I need to watch more of this.
Yeah. I just so easily imagine Kiryu walking into any of these maid cafes and getting
like, oh my god, what happened here? Conflict. Why are there dead maids on the floor? Why do you have guns? And then the like Yakuza ba-da-ba-ba music plays, and like it in the like font, the brush font, it says, you know, like Akiba Maids. And they all fucking shoot you with guns, and you're like,
He has to fight his way out of a mob of maids to get out to safety.
I don't usually like to hit women, but you clearly have guns and you're shooting people with them. I'm so conflicted. Yeah. This show is actually bonkers. it straight up is a mafia show that has just like absurd juxtapositions of like cutesy maid shit. Like, and they're doing it on purpose. It's supposed to be jarring.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is entertaining, to say the least.
I don't know how we're going to watch all these shows. I'm so interested in all of them.
I don't know. I'm afraid my time. How is this?
I'm just going to spend Thanksgiving watching anime. I mean, that's the life, right?
Honestly. Okay. Well, we got Pop Team Epic second season, which is the second season of Pop Team Epic.
Sure is.
If you didn't know, that means it's the Pop Team Epic second season.
It is. Yep.
It is. And it is. It continues to be.
It continues to be, yeah.
If you watched the first season and you liked what it gave you, they will give you more in the second season.
They have more now.
There's more.
For you.
It more, new, better. I think the first couple episodes were. This is the thing I love about Pop Team Epic, is that they get like bonkers A-list celebrities to like voice characters.
It's crazy.
One of the episodes, you just have Popcorn and PPM are voiced by Romy Park and Rie Kukimiya.
I mean, just like two of the biggest voice actresses in the industry.
Sure, why not?
Whatever. Why not? Yeah.
At this point, I think that the point of the show is to include, like, in the sort of like IMDb sense, just to be able to credit every single popular voice actor that is currently working.
They all must have Pop Team Epic in their filmography.
Right, exactly. Everybody needs it in their filmography. It's a badge of honor. That's how you know you've made it. And they still do the thing where the first half of the episode is the episode, and then the second half of the episode is the B-side episode where the voices are replaced with the male voice actors. I mean, it is still very, very entertaining.
Yes.
In terms of being absurd comedy. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Like, what do you really say about Pop Team Epic other than like it is really wild? It is absurd, pretty funny, and is like, host to some of the more creative animation that you will see in any given anime season, because they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, recommend that if you've watched the first season and you liked it, or if you've never watched it, start with the first season. But if an absurd comedy is like an abstract comedy, a comedy on the level of something you would see like at like 3 a.m. on Adult Swim, but that's the whole show.
Yes.
Surreal is the word I'm looking for. It's a very surreal comedy. But yeah, I mean, definitely check it out. Play It Cool Guys, we managed to watch an episode of, which is very charming. It's not anything too special, but it is about pretty boys that just like are very ditzy, and they go through ditz stuff, right? They're like, here's my wallet. When you're trying to pay for something, instead of being like, here's the coins that I pulled out from my wallet, right? And they're relatable and also like kind of cringe, but also like kind of wholesome. It's pretty cute. I think it's a short form, so you get like 3 episodes. You get like 3 episodes per episode, and at the total episode length is like 11 minutes. So very, very easy to go down if you want to watch something like that.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that.
Okay. And My Master Has No Tail, which is about a tanuki that begins to learn rakugo. The concept is very interesting. I think it's pretty cute. I feel like I'm fine if I don't really continue to watch it. Nothing about it was like too overly compelling to me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's not like I thought that it was a bad show or anything like that. It was fine, and there was rakugo in it, and they didn't like spice it up too much. They didn't they did a little bit of the oh, this is what the character is imagining as she's hearing the story.
Right.
I'm like fine with a little bit of that, but mostly I want to experience the Rakugo too. I want to feel like I'm in the audience, right? So they didn't do like an excessive amount of that, which I appreciated. But yeah, it's a pretty light watch, pretty easy watch, I would say. It's not to the I mean, like, I would say the last really compelling Rakugo show that we watched was Showa Genroku Rakugo. Which, like, that had, like, a bunch of, like, character drama stuff going on with it, too, in addition to the Rakugo. So, it's a fine show. If you want, like a lightweight Rakugo show, or if you don't quite know what Rakugo is and you just kind of want to be able to experience it, you don't get the heavy drama that comes with the other show that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I'm also fine if we don't, end up continuing it.
That is generally how I feel. Okay, and the last thing on our list here is To Your Eternity's second season, which I didn't watch.
Yeah, we didn't watch this one. But there's another. We mentioned it, but we didn't talk about it. We also watched. Wait, did we? No, we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about Mob Psycho 100.
Oh, yeah.
It.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We completely skipped Mob Psycho 100. It is still going, and it's still going stronger than ever before. Very worth watching.
Yeah, this is the broccoli arc.
Oh man, I wasn't prepared.
I wasn't. It is very good. The animation continues to be amazing. And you definitely feel your emotions being, pushed and pulled, like,
Yep.
The broccoli is a force to be reckoned with.
Man. Only Mob Psycho 100 could make me care about the things that it makes me care about. It's a little upsetting, actually.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Mob Psycho 100 is still, to this day, one of the best anime depicting very, very raw, honest emotion, right?
Yeah.
And it's really endearing in doing so. I think it's interesting because I think it's funny because it's airing at the same time as Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is also really similar in terms of how raw and honest and emotional it is, but it depicts it in a very different way. But Mob Psycho is man, what a fucking masterclass in character writing. It continues to be so good. And the way that it's being adapted is still one of the best adaptations of any non-anime to anime sort of adaptation out there. I think it is very easy for me to say that Mob Psycho 100 is probably one of the best adaptations of anything that exists.
It's really, really well done. I'm so glad we got more of it and that we're watching it. I'll happily watch the rest of the season as well. I can't really find anything to complain about it, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. I would say that Mob Psycho is easily one of my favorite shows that exists.
Yeah.
There is just so much to like about it. There's so much to care about. The characters all feel so rounded and realistic and grounded and they just feel like the world is it just exists, which is funny because it's a world with psychics and ghosts and demons,
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff, and it's it's very absurd, but
yeah.
Mob Psycho is It's interesting because it approaches some of the same subject matter that One Punch Man does, but it approaches it from a different angle.
Yes.
Man, there's just so much I could talk about in terms of how good Mob Psycho is. But definitely one of my favorite anime on the planet. So Season 3 still going extremely strong, so I would highly recommend continuing.
Yes, it has not dropped off. If you're worried about that kind of thing, definitely if you watched the first and second seasons and you've enjoyed them, then third season maintains that quality. It's great.
Definitely. Okay. What did you watch that I didn't? Because I see you have a couple things listed down here.
Yeah, so I wrapped up a couple of things from the last season that I was like, I mean, we started them. I'll go ahead and just finish them in my spare time. So, I'll start with Kamikuzu Idol, which had a funny premise, which was about the two dudes becoming idols. They're part of an idol group and they want to be, bigger. And a ghost of past idol inhabits the body of one of the male idols, and she was like basically like top of her game kind of idol before she passed away, and she's trying to use this opportunity to inspire this male idol to actually take passion in his job that he just doesn't have. He just kind of is just very blasé about everything. And so the show continues from that point to basically he starts gaining more like appreciation for his job, for his co-idol, his partner in the group. He gained some like fans, one of which was another male idol from a different group. And then by the end, you're expecting the very typical like, she's a ghost, so she's gonna say bye because the show's over, right?
Right.
But then they don't do that.
Oh, okay.
She just stays. And that's the show. They just wrap it up after their second anniversary concert. And I was like, really? We're just gonna end it there? And yeah, they end it after their concert. They do like a whole concert filled with a bunch of songs. And granted, the show does like do its best to like have a ton of songs for this show, even though the budget for the animation is like pretty minimal and like the concerts are like done in like CG and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by the song repertoire, and I was not very impressed by the ending of the show. It just feels like, and then they continue on. But I guess the guy had his character arc. He did, by the end of the show, appreciate his job a lot more and his fans a lot more. He wasn't completely transformed, but you could tell that he actually liked his job now. And that was it. That's the show. He's still possessed by a ghost. I don't know what to say.
I guess so.
So the other thing that I caught up on was Shadow's House Season 2. And my god. So the first season does, of course, a lot of setup, right? You're learning about the Shadow's House, you're learning about the rules. You very slowly but surely learn more about what's going on with the living dolls and why they're humans and why they're serving these shadows that emit soot. And then you find out that the living dolls don't even realize that they're humans, and they learned that during the show, right? In season 1. And so season 2 builds off of that concept, some of these children, some of the kids in the children's wing know the secret, right? That the living dolls are humans, that they probably were taken from the village or somewhere out there outside of Shadow's house and brought here to become a living doll, but why? And so while they're figuring out this whole situation, they stumble on this mystery of some shenanigans are happening in the children's wing, where these little soot minions are like infecting some of the children and causing them to have soot sickness. You don't know what's going on. There's a mysterious cloaked figure, and you're like, oh my gosh, this person is the one that's behind everything. And so the children are trying to catch them because Kate, who is the Emiliko's, master, quote unquote, the person that she serves, she is the one being blamed for the incident, right? Because of the stuff that happened in season 1 where she pissed off Edward. Edward is saying, like, yo, watch out for Kate. I bet she's going to do some stuff. And then some stuff happens, right? And so then everyone starts suspecting Kate. So she takes it upon herself to try and find out what's going on with this mysterious cloaked figure. And it feels like it's going to go in a pretty typical direction, like pretty low stakes. And my goodness, by the end of the season, there are allusions to people ending their own lives.
Oh my god.
Like people who did not not non-adult people from the
oh my.
Yeah. Granted, like I don't want to spoil too much, but it doesn't show anything, right? Like I'll just make that clear. It just like a character comes in and says this person ended their own life, and then the character's like, what? And yeah, so that's basically like it ends very dramatically. The second season, it also like ends in a pretty on a pretty satisfying note in a weird way too. Like there are the dramatic revelations, of course, but then in the end, there's like the main characters taking some agency, and you see like Emilico especially very empowered by the end of the second season. She starts actually taking charge and taking lead of like the situation that's going on. So I'm kind of hoping that they make more. I hope they make a season 3 so that I can watch the animation and figure out what's going on, because I haven't read the manga yet. I'd be happy to read the manga too, of course, but yeah, the animation does a good job of like conveying the soot powers, because there's a lot more soot powers that go on in the second season as well. You get to learn, of course, as you learn, you get introduced to more of the shadows in the house. You get to see more unique powers. And the whole magic system involved, I guess. So it's cool. It's a really cool season. I highly recommend it.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have been meaning to watch more of Shadow's House. Obviously, time constraints. Yeah, it's neat. All right, is that everything? Have we covered everything? My goodness, this still ended up being quite long.
We did our best.
Well, anyway, that's how it goes. All right, who are you, and I can find you on the internet?
I am Renu, also known as Swan. You can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitch, all of that at swandrawn. On Fridays, I stream games. And I am in the middle of streaming Resident Evil 2 Remake. I am so scared of this game. Every time I sit down to play it, I am so filled with dread and fear, and I haven't even gotten to the scariest parts of the game yet. It's just really well done. It's distressingly well done, this game.
Fair enough.
I played the original RE2. Before this, and the difference between them is just it's just miles different. I've enjoyed both so far, even though I'm just scared out of my mind while playing the remake. I'll be playing more this Friday. Well, I mean, I don't know when this episode will be released, but I'll probably still be playing it by the time.
I'm most likely, yes, yeah.
So yeah, that's it. And sometimes on Thursdays I stream art, so yeah,
cool, nice.
Swing on by.
Yeah, I have I've been wanting to stream a little bit more, but I will not promise anything because we all know how I'm like. So, yeah. Cool. Well, you can find me all the places at Literal Soup. With the sort of like impending death of Twitter, that has just been kind of slowly. I say slowly; it's taken like a week. That's actually it's kind of sickening. But with the impending implosion of Twitter, not just in the kind of like not just in the kind of like, oh, you know, Elon Musk is in charge and he's making bad decisions. It's like, no, actually, this is like critical. He's like firing like 75% of the staff and like all the critical engineers, and like the website might not even actually work in a week, which is terrifying. You can find me all places at L'Oreal Soup. I'm doing what I'm doing, making stuff. I'm focusing. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on writing recently, and that's just kind of been what I'm up to. Focusing on, you know, me, my writing. Maybe not worrying too much about like getting a job immediately. Obviously, getting one would be good and great and ideal, but you know, so it goes, right? If I can just spend a lot of time working on my personal projects, that would just make me happy.
That's good.
Yeah, that's what I'm up to. I did learn that the new Pokemon game is coming out. By the time you listen to this episode, it will have been out for probably a couple of weeks. And that is news to me. I didn't know when it was coming up, but apparently it's like out like tonight/tomorrow. Yeah. I'd say, which will give you the exact date that we are recording this on. Once again, I've dated the podcast. I tried really hard this time, but I couldn't resist bringing this up because I was
inevitably
my perception of time is just
no, it's fine. I brought up Thanksgiving, so now people know exactly, basically, when we're recording this.
But yeah, anyway, I guess we'll see you next time. I'm honestly at this point I don't even know what the like content schedule is for the next episode. Like we'll see. It was meant to be the year of Renu, and it turned into Renu took a vacation.
Excuse you, don't you blame me.
Renu took a vacation, which she deserved. I also took a vacation.
My sabbatical wasn't the only reason.
I also took a vacation, which, to be fair, I think I deserved.
We all need vacation sometimes.
But anyway, yeah, we'll have a proper episode out at some point that isn't just a seasonal stuff. We've been catching up on the seasonal stuff. It really takes a lot out of you to do the seasonal stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. But, yeah. So, I guess on that note, you know, our opening is by Takuma Okada. No, other way around. Our opening is by Scotch Network, and our ending is by Takuma Okada. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.
さようなら。また明日ね。